Welcome back to Big Brave Business. I'm your host, Sarah K. Heater. Big Brave Business is a podcast where we challenge the status quo of traditional business practices. So if you're ready to challenge norms, rewrite the rules, and redefine what it means to lead with courage and integrity, then grab a notebook and let's dive in. Welcome back to Big Brave Business. I'm always going to have to sing-song it. That's just how it's going to have to be. It hits different when Amanda is not on the call, but it's like the nod to Amanda being here. Okay, so I'm excited for this conversation today. This is a conversation I've been wanting to have really since the fall when we met, because I just thought that there was so much value in our initial conversations just meeting each other, and I'm really excited to have this on the podcast today. So my guest is Dr. Catrina Mitchum, founder of Catrina Mitchum Learning Design. Catrina has 16 years of experience designing and delivering online courses and training inside higher ed. She creates change through learning design support for overwhelmed founders that give a shit about the success of their employees and clients. She provides that combination of a swift kick and a helping hand to simplify the process, eliminate the overwhelm, and focus on learner success through accessibility and transparency. Welcome, Catrina. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so excited too. I feel like I should be sing-songing everything now.
I guess I'm just in a good mood today. I'm so interested in having this conversation because I was definitely someone who, before I started my entrepreneurship journey, I was just interested in entrepreneurship. I was already listening to Amy Porterfield around the clock because, and I think a lot of people who are listening can probably relate to this, because she's one of the biggest online entrepreneurship podcasts out there, and because she's a woman. So for me, I really have a problem with learning from men. This is like something that I continually get hung up on. So to have a woman I can listen to, and I didn't know where else to look. Obviously, from a search engine optimization standpoint and a brand reputation standpoint, she's really easy to find if you don't know anything about anything. Amy Porterfield is where I learned the term evergreen. I literally thought that was a software, and I was Googling it when I first heard her mention it on a podcast. I learned a lot of basics about what I know about how to do online business from listening to that podcast for years before I started my own business. And of course, that means that because she is like the self-proclaimed queen of digital courses, I started my business with the assumption that I need to have a digital course and I need to be in DCA. So full transparency, I've done other courses from Amy Porterfield. I did not ever do DCA. I could not afford it at the time. And then by the time I could afford it, I didn't want it anymore, just to give some context. And then I did do one round of a digital course offering based on like the information that she had put out there for a funnel into DCA, like a 30-day funnel into DCA. And I really enjoyed the community and that program. However, I hated my digital course. Like, I hated it. I hated making it. I hated selling it. And I hated feeling disconnected from anyone who did go through the course, which is why I retired it. So I had a very viscerally negative experience with my digital course. And I believe in them. I've taken some to varying degrees of success, but I am so interested to talk to you just because so much more about curriculum from your pre-entrepreneurship days. So tell me first, in your opinion, why do you think online courses became as popular as they are? And are they still popular or are they dead?
So my gut says they became popular because YouTube, right? Not that people were taking YouTube and making them into courses, but YouTube has been popular for like very quick, go learn how to. I went on around the holidays, was like, I need to make my own bow because I didn't want to spend $35 on a bow for a wreath. And so I went onto YouTube. It was like 7 minutes and I had a passable bow. Like from the street, it looked great. Up close, don't inspect it. And so I really think it was like that sense of if you give them the content and you give them the steps, they can go do it. Right. But like for more complex learning beyond go make a bow, content information doesn't just get poured into your head and you've learned it and can apply it. And so I think that's where the disconnect came in the evergreen courses being those things where you can just put all this content in there, you can give them the content and they will learn, right? And then now, I don't know that they're dead, but I think people are suspicious, rightfully so, of buying a program. But like I've bought courses and programs that the content is there and the content can in some ways be evergreen, but I'm also getting, hey, did you do this yet, and here, go do this task, here's the worksheet to do, this is the place that you submit it to get feedback from like a real human being that that is
Yeah.
invested in your success in completing this thing because they want you to do well, right? That's why they're here, they're invested in helping you make these changes. And so I think the heyday of the Evergreen Kajabi course might be coming to an end because people are tired of it. They're realizing they're spending all this money
Right.
on things that they're like, oh yeah, I'll get to it when, but we all need accountability, and they just don't
Yeah.
get to it.
And I feel like, of course, all of us have bought courses we never finished, right? That is
Hmm.
just I feel like at this point in, at least in online business in 2024, it's pretty much impossible to have avoided
It
buying
is.
courses that you end up not finishing. And some of them might be
Right.
great, but many of them that I've bought, I didn't finish, and at totally varying price points. And I
Hmm.
think you're really onto something with the YouTube thing. And I would maybe, I'm reflecting on this, I would maybe even go so far as to say, so first I was like, oh, and Wikipedia even. And then I
Mm.
was like, even going so far as just to say Google, because I think there's really this feeling, this sense of the information is there and it's at our fingertips. And all we have to do to get the answers that we're looking for, the answers that in a lot of cases we're desperate for, all we have
Hmm.
to do is just find where they live on the internet and then we'll have the answers. And I think
Right.
this really taps into a lot of what we've talked about with just marketing issues in general, ethical complications of selling to your pain points and things like that, because we are all feeling pain. And just in capitalism, and when someone is selling the solution, it's persuasive. And I feel like the disenfranchisement with courses, in my opinion, of what makes them feel quote unquote dead is that magic bullet solution. We aren't fooled anymore, or at least we're not fooled as easily, because there's new people coming into the corral who are like, I want to start an online business every day. And so you could still maybe get those new people who haven't yet been disenfranchised, but very quickly they're going to learn, because that's what the discourse is online now, that essentially a lot of courses suck. A lot
Yeah,
of them suck.
they do. They do. What I was going to say is that I even think it potentially goes back to our experiences in formal education. How many
Mhm.
times did you sit in a class, especially people of a certain age, and just get talked at
Yeah.
and then expect to do something with that talking? I mean, educate formal education across the board has come a long way in like understanding through research and study that's not actually how that's not how kids learn, that's not how adults learn.
Yeah.
Nobody learns that way. You have to at least have engaged with it. Like even thinking, so going back to Google or Wikipedia, or even thinking about buying a book, right? If it's a nonfiction book and you're buying that book to learn something, if you don't do things like highlight, take notes, take the thing that's in the book and apply it to whatever it is that you're doing for dummies, right? Then you're not actually, are you actually learning it? Or are you just reading it and then like maybe filing some of it away back there? And I think it really gets at interesting questions of what is knowledge, right? Is knowledge learning? Do you need to have applied it to learn it? Yeah, so I think find it fascinating. That might be a little too nerdy for
Not at all. I am so tracking with you. So I feel like too, there's two kinds of I, I feel like there's really categories of adults that when you're reflecting on your education, there's those like me who were nerdy, loved school, loved classes, loved learning, quote unquote, although you just like threw a whole bomb into what is learning, but loved this concept of I can be a straight A student and I love being a straight A student and look how much I learned. Here's my A on my paper, or here's my gold star. And then there's other people who were really checked out of school or had struggles at school. School wasn't structured or built for them and the way that they learn, or they had other stuff going on that precluded them from being able to be focused on school. Whatever it is, school was not a positive experience for them and they rejected it. And both of those people were, I'm going to use past tense, were very persuadable for online courses because we don't know what we don't know. Most of us, especially women, are totally unprepared to start and run a business. And so people who loved school are like, courses, great, sign me up. This is the solution because I'm a straight A student. So if I take this course, I'm going to stand out, I'm going to do great, and then that's going to, and then I'll know. Forget the MBA, I can just take online courses. I can do this, right? And then other people who are on the flip side of that, the other category, they're like, I didn't learn this in school because I wasn't able to really participate in school, or I wasn't able to thrive in school, or I hated school, or I had bad teachers, or whatever it is. And then they're like, so I didn't get this in school. So now this is a chance for me to do a do over. I can learn this in a new way, in an accessible way that was meant for me. And now this phase of my life. And I'm going to rewrite my school chapter by taking this course that's going to help me run a business. So who needed that formal education anyway? So I feel, since you mentioned like the relationship to school, I think you're really onto something. And it's interesting too. I just had this kind of thought because I do podcasting, which is like both as a podcaster and running a podcast production company, is that I feel like this kind of feeling of I just want to learn as much as I can from online courses has kind of transferred to podcasts. Now you don't have to pay for an online course that you're not going to finish or whatnot. You can get these more bite-sized educational. There's a lot more like how-to podcasts and like actionable, tangible podcasts now. And that's really interesting. Anyways, I'm
Yeah.
fascinated.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about before we pressed record, right? Like how with Big Break Business, I always wanted to jump into the conversation. But to me, that's me. I'm hearing what you're saying, I'm processing it, and I'm forming engagement with that, right? And
Mhm.
so that's something I could totally learn from a podcast if I'm really listening. And that's the other kicker, right? Like really listening and thinking about it and wanting to engage in that conversation. That means, yeah, I would check that off as learning. I think there's also one of the ways that the course creation industry has tainted itself, I'm going to say, is that everything's got to be video, right? Like people go in and expect a video vault at this
Yeah.
point because that's what everybody's been doing. But you could have just audio. Like if you don't need to show it, why are we doing the why are we doing video? And I think people aren't thinking about the content delivery in a course as something that should be based on what the heck the content is and also who the learner is.
Yeah.
They're a busy parent, or someone that I've worked with had a course on doing or getting out into nature more, right? And she was struggling with video and I was like, why are you doing video? Nobody is going to be watching video in the forest. So why not make it an audio that they can download and then they can go out and listen to it as they're going on their walk or whatever it happens to be. I think that's a thing that people often replicate what they've seen and what they know and what they
Right.
think they're supposed to
And
be doing.
frankly, what they're taught to do. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So on
I'm
that
back.
note
Oh, go ahead.
on that note, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you think course creators make, especially when we're thinking about we've all bought courses we didn't finish, we've had both positive and negative experiences. What are some of the most common mistakes?
I think you've already touched on a lot of them in your critique of courses, right? Like not having support and having to spend so much time building this thing that it's not actually responsive and inclusive of the people. Like you had mentioned your course and you felt disconnected from them because you were just giving them this information and you weren't getting to see the growth. Like
Yeah.
having being a teacher, the best part about seeing someone learning the things that you're passionate about is their aha moments. Like
Yeah.
when things just click and you're like, "Oh, yes, that's exactly what you want to get." And now you're as excited about it as I am. And so I think doing those things has removed the passion out of teaching and learning for a lot of course creators. And there are a bajillion ways that we can infuse that back in there, but I would say that's the umbrella issue.
Interesting, interesting. Do you think there's a problem with ethics in the course creation industry? There's problems with ethics
Do
everywhere,
you?
but so yeah, I do. I think that this is a little jaded, and I guess if you've been listening to this podcast for a little while, maybe that's not a surprise, but I feel like I talked about it earlier, but I feel like it is the idea of making courses is also sold to you as a magic bullet solution to your
Mhm.
business too. This is where
Yeah.
you're going to sell so much and you're going to make so much money and it's going to create a business for you or take your existing business to a new level. And also this idea that it's passive or
Yeah.
something, that it's a passive way to make income compared to doing direct done for you services and being a service
Right.
provider. You create this course and you can make exponentially more money than if you're providing services.
Mhm.
And if I think about it from an education standpoint, because I also teach at my local university, isn't education providing a service? That is also it's just a weird take on it. And I say this as somebody who drank the Kool-Aid a little bit because I really wanted it to be true. Of course I did. Of course I wanted
Yeah.
that to be true. But I don't really think it is, and I think that the people who that has worked for in that way, who created digital courses and they sold like gangbusters and they made millions of dollars,
Mhm.
I think a little bit first of all, I definitely think they're anomalies. Even
Yeah.
6, 7, 8 years ago, they were anomalies, but 6, 7, 8 years ago, also, they weren't coming into a really saturated, exhausted market for selling
Mhm.
courses. And so I feel like still marketing course creation as a magic bullet when we know full well that they don't work for us as learners, but still encouraging those people who aren't getting what they paid for as learners to also create their own course to do that to other people
Other people.
feels
Uh-huh.
unethical to me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that's why the snake oil salesman episode that you did with Amanda was one where I was like, yes, and that's what I really wanted to participate in because I completely agree. It almost feels like an MLM, right? Where you're being taught how to deliver in a shitty way, how to deliver these shitty courses, and it just has a snowball effect. I absolutely agree. In fact, one of the recently I had put a poll out on LinkedIn and Instagram asking like, what do you expect from a course? Interestingly enough, most people wanted both content and like application of that content. I did have a couple people that expected just to have a video vault, but then commented, "That's what I expect. That is not, what I want. That's not actually what I want."
I see, I see. So
Yeah,
that's an interesting from a research perspective, that's an interesting thing of, like, how the question was asked, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because what you expect and what you want
What
or
you
what
want
you
or
think would be effective are different questions.
exactly. And so there will
Yeah.
be a follow-up poll.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. I think it's interesting. What do I want from an online course? What's interesting is I would then question in what context do I actually think if an online course really gave me what I thought would be effective, in what context do I want an online course? Because I'm a person who, if tuition was affordable in the United States, I would literally collect all the degrees. I love courses. I love to learn and to take courses. And I also think as a business owner, I don't need a course or realistically have the bandwidth to take a course successfully for every single thing I need to do in business. I actually think most of the time that's not the solution that I need. So in what context for what things is an online course really an effective and I guess I'm genuinely curious what you think. Like, what are the most effective topics or themes that would warrant a digital course?
Anything that needs support. So I think that a lot of people use course to describe curated content. That's what I would call the things that people assume courses are now, right? But you can sell curated content in various different ways, right? I think that the things that need support, so often building things or things that need feedback, and some of that can come down to who you are as a learner. There are things that I know I don't need feedback on, I could just go do. But then there are things where I'm not entirely sure, and I could use somebody that's an expert in this to help guide me in what it is I'm trying to do. And so to me, that's the distinction. It's understanding who you are as a learner and then what you need. And that would also be assuming that courses come with support, which I think they all should. I don't think we should be selling content curation as a course, because that I think is the unethical bit, as well. But yeah, I'm not sure if that answered what you
Yeah,
were.
no, it's interesting. I think so two things. One is that like a video vault can
Hmm.
still have its place in the world. It can
Yeah.
still be something really it's essentially like a private podcast but with video
Hmm.
where it's like you said curated content maybe about specific topics or themes or whatever, but it's meant to be self-paced. It's meant to be something that you can just engage in probably passively while you're multitasking, to be honest, and
Hmm.
you get what you get from it. And it just is what it is. That it's not to say that if you sell that, it's not to say you can't sell that. I think though marketing it as a course is where like we're saying there's an opportunity for your marketing of it to and your positioning and your messaging to be a little bit more transparent about what to expect from it. And also, I think the price point then needs to be taken into consideration. And
Right.
not to say that your expertise is not valuable. I'm not saying that. And I'm also not saying that curating all of those videos did not take effort because having recorded a
Hmm.
video series for a course, I hated doing that experience. And I it didn't expect to hate it. I love podcasting. I podcast with video and audio. I was a theater kid. I'm a public speaker. I love if the phrase that's, oh, if you, or that big question that's, if I handed you a microphone, what could you speak about
Oh
for 30
yeah.
minutes with no
Uh-huh.
preparation? Literally anything. Literally anything. I'm a talker, I'm a
I
performer.
like you, Sarah.
So, thank you. So, I did not expect that recording videos about information I already know and am an expert on would be so awful. It was so awful. So I'm not trying to discredit the amount of work that goes into creating a video vault is what I'm trying to say, or the
Yes.
expertise that you have. However, if it's passive income for you, you can probably assume it's passive consumption for the learner. And
Hmm.
then if you don't want to sell it at a passive consumption price point, maybe it's not an offer that's worth making. I'm just
Right.
saying. So
100%.
I feel like that's just should be taken into consideration. Courses, a true course full of support could be priced higher
Hmm.
within
Within reason.
relation to a video vault.
Yeah.
It could definitely be a higher price point because it includes active support.
People.
Right. But then, yeah, it's going to be an active offer.
Going to be an active offer. I think you are exactly right. And I just had this conversation with someone about relate video vaults to, we have books, ebooks, audiobooks. These are like video books because all of those things, all of those various
Yeah.
flavors of books are curated content. And so, why are we trying to sell curated content that's just in a different delivery mechanism
Yep.
as a course?
And also, coming back to the price point, I can't help but think nobody's selling their book for $2,500. I'm just saying. And it's not that
No.
their expertise, their years of experience, the work that went into writing a book, because it certainly is worth a lot more than $17.99, the amount of work that
Oh
they
my
put into
gosh,
writing that
yes.
book, but it's priced that way because of how it's being consumed and how it's being applied by the user. And that is what we would expect to pay for a book, or even less, right? A 17.99 might even be steep for some books. You might be looking to spend more like 6.99. I'm just
4.99.
saying. This idea that you can sell it to hundreds of thousands of people potentially, yes, true. And for $1.99, right? Like that's what $1.99 ebook. That's what we're talking about. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. Yeah, because I think that, and not to derail us because this is a whole other conversation, but I think just I've been really stuck for the last like year on this idea of pricing yourself, you're pricing
Mhm.
what you're worth. And that is just there's a whole other episode on this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in here. That's not possible. If you're listening to this, just know it is not possible to charge what you're worth because you are worth so much more as a person
Yeah.
than whatever your offer is. You are worth
Yeah.
so much more than that. You can't possibly charge that. It's literally not possible. So go ahead and throw out
Yeah.
that advice.
Yeah. So I had a book published in January. It is, uh,
Congratulations. Wait, I
and
don't
it
think
won
I
an
knew that.
award. I'm so excited.
Oh my
I
gosh. Okay,
know.
I am like totally disconnected from you. This is so cool.
And
Tell
it's
me
so
about your book.
pretty. It's so pretty. The award is so pretty. Isn't that beautiful?
That's so cool.
So the book is actually academic facing. It was published by an academic organization in English studies, and it took, oh Lord. So it was contracted in 2019. And so it was published in January of 2024. So that tells you how long. It was co-authored, fortunately, and I love my co-author, but it took a long time. It was a painful process, and it's 39.99, right? And that doesn't make it less valuable. It just makes it accessible. And I won't have to look at it again or do anything to it again until it needs like an AI update in in a couple of years. Yeah, so I agree. All that to say, I agree that it's about thinking about the long-term trajectory of what you're doing and the value in that to someone else as well when you're pricing things like that. And I feel like a video vault's probably easier to sell and then change, you're right, because you can change out videos as you're going along. Yeah, but I do have a question for you. What was it about recording those videos that was so painful?
I think it was that I try to do everything by myself. So
Mm,
I outlined the course and what the different videos were going to be. I outlined the actual scripts for the videos. I can't remember if they were fully scripted or if they were outlined. Honestly, at this point, it was 2021, and I probably block it out a little bit. I also try to do all the tech setup by myself, which I have a really nice DSLR and I had it on a tripod, and I found myself thinking like it would be so much easier to just record it on Zoom, honestly, and then just take the recording. But I wanted it to be a really high quality video because that's what I was seeing from these really
mm,
massive course creators. So I had this really nice camera that I do know how to use, but there's all these added things to it when you're trying to be your own everything, trying to position it so that I'm in focus and the frame looks good and the lighting looks good. And then there's this whole other layer of I really needed the sound to be good. If you're just using the
yeah,
built in camera microphone, it's going to suck. And because what
yeah,
I was teaching is podcasting, it was really important to me that the audio sounded good. So then I'm trying to figure out how to use a good microphone with this and how do I position everything and how am I lining up everything. And then by the time I got that done, then I'm trying to record and you're adding in this advice, which is honestly at this point, like I wish I could go back and tell myself, throw all of this out. But you have to change your shirt so that it's not obvious that you recorded them all in one sitting. Why? Who cares if it was all recorded in one sitting? Who cares? Yeah, you're damn right I batched that content and I recorded it
yeah,
in 2 days. Like,
yeah.
of course I did. So that's ridiculous, but I'm trying to do that. Secondly, so I have two cats and they were really interested in what I was doing. I think also probably because I was getting up from my seat, sitting down, up from my seat, sitting down in order to like start the camera, reposition the camera, stop the camera, etc.
Your shirt.
They and then I'm sweating because I'm stressed and because doing all this. So the cats are all involved. And then, and this is going to make me sound like such a gross cat lady. And I promise you, this is the only time this has ever happened. But I don't know, in the excitement or the stress or something, one of my cats peed in my pile of shirts and that I was using. And I literally just started crying. I just started crying. And I was like, I can't, because if I
Oh,
lock them out of the room, then they're banging on the door and crying on the other side. And I was just like, this is not the fantasy that was sold to me
told to you.
of this is not me performing. This is me. I can't even get to the performing part. I just like I just cried. And my partner was not home. So I called him and I just cried at him. And he was like, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to go lock the cats in a different room. You need to, like whatever. He was like, make it easy for yourself and just get through it. But it was like I just hated it. And it made me, you know what? It made me hate the course before I even sold it. And I'm
Mm,
100% certain that showed up in why I hated selling it and why I just resented the whole thing because the
yeah,
process of building it sucked so much.
yeah.
And it took so much work to build it. It's not like a small thing.
I'm exhausted listening, listening to you describe the process. And I'm glad I asked that question because I think that also speaks to what course creators can do that want to actually create this experience that is going to help the learner, and it's being authentic. And I authentically am not going to set things up that way for a video. And I think that one gives folks a little bit of, you don't have to do that. You have permission to not do it that way. Because
Yeah.
one, you might be a person of one, or maybe you do have a VA, but they're probably not even in the same state as you,
Yeah.
right? So it's permission. I think, Sarah, you just gave everybody permission to not do it that way. It doesn't
And I
have
think
to look
back the
polished.
curtain that I'm pretty sure, and I don't know this to be true, and I actually don't really listen to her stuff anymore because to be quite honest, I don't listen to any podcasts I don't produce for the most part, but because I listen to 25 podcasts a week. Like, I don't, it's enough. But it's not enough. I would love more clients and I will listen to those. But yeah, no more. No, not outside of that. So, anyways, so I don't really follow her anymore, but I'm pretty sure Amy Porterfield has like a team of 16. Okay. So,
Oh my
and
gosh.
let alone when she hires, I'm sure she hires like a production team who's coming in to film her. Like she's not doing
Yeah.
that herself. So yours is not going to look like her. And I think like 2021 Sarah, little sweet dear, really needed somebody to
A
tell her
hug
that.
and a drink
It's gonna be,
and permission.
it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. A shower, some laundry detergent, bleach. Oh God, I was so mad.
But yeah, but I think that's one of the things that can bring course creation and even group programming or whatever you want to call it back from the dead is being authentic in just. And so I'm going to do that now. They can't see me, but I've got wallpaper only covering the parts that you can see. But it's because I like this,
Yeah,
right? And it was pricey. And so I talk about that in my videos. Like I like the way it looks. I like to have a background that's a little bit fun and funky
same.
and it's on brand, but I'm not going to spend all that money on stickable wallpaper that I'm going to be pulling off because I'm a military spouse and we move every 2 to 3 years. So
Yeah,
like being and including those things in your videos. And I think that's something that I learned from teaching online uh informal education that I think is so important in the real world is like
mhm.
really just being yourself. The only thing I ever edited out of videos for my students was if I dropped any kind of cuss word, right? That's not the place for that, but sometimes that would happen because I don't have cats, but I have 2 kids. And so it would just organically happen. And I would cut that out of videos, but everything else, leave it. It makes you human. And that's
Yeah,
the thing that closes distances between people that are physically at a distance is reminding each other that we're human on the other side.
yeah,
And when you're doing an online course, you don't have many opportunities to be that human if everything is perfectly scripted and
yeah,
everything looks perfect on the camera and you
yeah,
don't have the cat walking across like that is expected now. Right? And so those are things that can make the experience for your clients more successful because they can connect to you and it makes them invested in doing the things that you're asking them to do. So do it. Just do it.
yeah. So I'm watching the time, but I really want on that to follow that train and really like end on positive. So I think that we both agree there's still room for online education in this market. And like I teach online at a university, so I definitely am like pro online education. And so even if you're not doing it through a university, if you are wanting to offer online education in a ton of different contexts, and we can call it a course, whatever, but whatever version of online education. What are some like tips and best practices for making sure that your courses are accessible and for improving your completion rates in your professional experience?
I'm going to start with completion rates and then flip to accessibility for that question. Always start from goals of the course because that gives you a place to always make sure everything is coming back and being aligned to. And when you do that, make sure that you are transparent about how this thing I'm telling you or this thing I'm asking you to do is going to help you reach those goals. And so being transparent, you got to take them on the ride. Remember, they're not in your head. They don't understand how doing this thing or listening to this thing is going to help them. So the transparency and the support are how you help folks finish with the understanding that they might not, or they might have to drop it and come back because life happens and you're teaching adults and there are going to be more important things in their lives than completing your course. But making sure that transparency and support are there can help them come back when they're ready. And then for accessibility, that's a hard one because there are so many different things. It can be really overwhelming, but I always recommend starting with one, making sure that the content delivery is accessible. And going back to my example about being in the forest and not needing video, that's
Mhm.
the first choice that you should make. And then making sure that whatever the content is then accessible for disabilities. If you have a podcast, make sure there's a transcript. If you have a video, make sure it's captioned and there's a transcript. And maybe even potentially pull the audio out and make all of the content available. That tends to be the biggest issue in accessibility is being able to listen, to read, or whatever makes the most sense to you, because different people in different contexts will want to get the information differently. And so I would say that's probably the quickest and easiest way to think about accessibility is the accessibility of the content. And then moving into like the asking the tasks, right? Like the what you want them to do with that content, giving options. So not everybody wants to make a list. Some people want to make a mind map, right? So
Mm,
giving options and understanding like, okay, so pick the one that feels the best to you because it
yeah,
doesn't matter what the deliverable is, it's that you're applying this content to do this thing that matters.
yeah. What resources do you have or recommend that can help people who might be listening, who already do have online education or who want to have online education as part of their offerings? Where I don't want to just say where can they find you? Obviously, like where can they find you is going to be in the description of the episode, but like what resources do you have or recommend?
If you already have a course, I actually do course audits. And so that is
Mm,
something where
that's so helpful.
we talk about what are the things you're concerned about because and your learners are concerned about because that's always where we should start. And then I can do an accessibility audit, I can do a content audit, I can do like a full gamut audit, right? It will really just depend on what your needs, and those needs should be driven by your concerns and your learners' concerns always. I have a blog on my website where I'm answering questions. That's the format that I've gone for. And then I have a free course starter pack, and what that has in it is it's a fillable PDF, and it has a way to map out your steps and your tasks, and then a table that helps you figure out what content best fits with what you're trying to do in your course. And then on May 23rd, not sure when this is going to be, when this will be live, but on May 23rd, I'm doing a workshop. And that is focused on helping people pick the focus. I find a lot of people are like, I've always wanted to make a course. And then you ask them what it's going to be about, and they say, it could be about this and this and this and this and this, right? But if you do that, then you don't have a course, you have a certificate, and nobody wants to buy a certificate. And so it focuses on that and setting up the goals for the course and then creating a viability plan. So I think the approach that I take is once you have a big goal and you have the things that the course is going to do for your person or your client, go and ask potential clients, is this something right that you would be interested? Check off the goals that are important to you. And really, you could call it market research, but I call it learner research because it really is focused on the client as a learner as opposed to the client as a buyer. And you get really good information that you can use in marketing, but is first useful in then what designing the course.
Okay, this is all so helpful, and I like just listening to you and what you are talking about offering, and I'm just like, I wish that 2021 Sarah met you because I really think I just really think none of that advice is in the material that I was consuming about how to create a digital course. And now, like in hindsight, I can look back at that and be like, you're just missing the whole point, right?
Yeah, but
And
it's
I
not your
think
fault.
so much, thank you. So much of what I call out now in an online business is about your and this isn't I didn't come up with this. I heard someone say it and I've really reflected on it and implemented it. And it's your income goals are not your client's responsibility. And I think so often how like business models are sold to us is about us and not about our audience or our clients or our customers or however you want to think of that. This idea of creating a course, I can look back and see the way it was being sold and taught to me was in a way of this is going to make me money and not this is going to help so many people get
Yeah,
going. And I think really at the root of like, why did I hate it? Probably exactly that. But that's at the root of everything is like, what I resent this. And I think when somebody, speaking of the snake oil salesman thing, when somebody is selling you a magic ticket to answer all your problems as far as what you need to do in your business or how to create a business that's going to help you live the life of your dreams, then it's missing the point of a business being meant to solve a problem or being meant to help people or produce a product or a service that is adding value to customers. That is
yeah,
the point, and
yeah,
it's a fringe benefit that hopefully it's profitable, but, like, the point is to offer value to other
right.
people.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just think that's really I feel like that's really ingrained in everything that you just mentioned that you do and offer and help people with in building a course, and I think that really brings course creation back to what it's meant to do, which is help someone learn
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. And people want to take a course and learn something because they want to change. And that's why in a lot of my own marketing, I very clearly say I'm for people that give a shit. Because if you don't give a shit, then I'm not for you because I'm going to be asking you to do things that assume that
Yeah.
you actually care about whether or not you're helping other people with the change that they're coming to you for.
Yeah. Okay, I could talk to you all day, so we're
Yeah,
just gonna have
same.
to end at some
Cut
point,
this off
but,
at some
I
point.
definitely wanna have you back because I just really enjoy talking to you, and I love to end with that tradition that Amanda and I did all through season 1, which is, what is something that's making you happy right now?
Something that's making me happy right now is the control I have over my schedule
Mm,
because I get to work out in the morning and take care of myself because I'm doing the kind of work that I'm doing, which we didn't get into this, but I left a burnout higher ed job where
yeah,
I wasn't getting to take care of myself. And so this is a particular week where like I had gains in my strength. And it's because I left that job and I'm doing work that I love and on my terms in a way that I can also take care of myself.
really great, and it's making me question what I'm gonna say for mine because I don't feel like I have anything that deep. I know what I haven't said, but it's so cheesy compared to what you said, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I have really what's been really making me happy right now is the new Taylor Swift album, and that actually I say that, and I also am like and not because it's really depressing of an album, but I just have been enjoying it. And so if you haven't been following me super closely on social media, which I don't blame you because first of all, I'm just one person and second of all, algorithms, but I always thought Taylor Swift music was fun, whatever. I didn't really consider myself like a Swiftie until a couple of years ago. And then even then it was like Swiftie light. And then when the Eras Tour movie came out last year, I feel like it took my Swiftiehood to a whole new level. Like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid at this point. I think she is mesmerizing and so smart and interesting, and her music is still fun. So you get all of the benefits of that. So, anyways, I'm fascinated by her, and yeah, I'm drinking the Swifty Kool-Aid lately. That's mine, which is not nearly as meaningful as I have control over my schedule, and I'm like seeing the benefits of that in my life, which that's awesome. I am
That's
developing an
okay.
unhealthy obsession with a celebrity I'll never meet.
That's something to be celebrated too.
Whatever makes you happy, right? That's
Exactly.
yeah. So,
Exactly.
definitely that, definitely that. Thank you so much for joining me, and I've had so much fun chatting with you, and as I mentioned earlier to you listening, to connect with both of us, but especially to connect with Dr. Catrina Mitchum, you can get all of her links and information in the description of the episode, and also you can find where to connect with me and the show, and in particular, I've been hanging out more on LinkedIn lately, so there's some big brave business content going on over on LinkedIn, so if you have a LinkedIn, both of us are over there, so come hang out with us on LinkedIn. Let's bring some of this big brave business energy over there, and I guess that's it. I will see you next week.